There's more people who are in high school and in college that are wanting to become personal trainers. But the big change that's happening today is that they're shifting online from the get-go. They no longer aspire to work at a Crunch or an Equinox, and they've already built a great brand of their own, or they want to pursue online coaching right off the bat.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Taylor Pemberton, co-founder and CEO of Superset. In this episode, we discuss the company's approach to building software tools for health and fitness coaches. Taylor shares how his background in athletics, design, and big tech laid the foundation for Superset. Plus, we talk about product-led growth, scaling sustainably, and redefining the online coach's tech stack. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by Jack Taylor, our exclusive PR partner. More than just PR, they're creative storytellers and brand builders who actually understand the health and wellness industry. To learn more, head to fitt.co/Jack Taylor. That's FITT.co/Jack Taylor. Hey, Taylor, welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, man, excited to chat. Lots to get into. I think maybe as a introduction to yourself and Superset, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Taylor Pemberton. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Superset. We help the modern day independent fitness coach run and scale their business online through a very simple modern tech stack of tools that we create as a software team. And so we've been pursuing this for the last 4 years full time. Quick background on myself. So I grew up in the Midwest, suburb outside Minneapolis. I always looked to the internet as this kind of like brand new world. It was always what existed outside of this small bubble that I grew up in. And I knew that I was just drawn toward what else was out there and was inspired by everything that was happening on the internet. So there's two big strong points here. Like I grew up as a competitive athlete and I was kind of always tiptoeing between going to practice and then coming home to stay up as late as possible on the computer. And so from a very young age, 9, 10, 11 years old, I was super obsessed with internet forums, video games, computers. That eventually led to me discovering design software. And so I've been working in a design role for the last 10, 15 years, but really started experimenting from a young age as a designer on the internet. And so I pursued both of these passions through high school. I ended up playing competitive sports in college, and I quit my sophomore year to focus on my design education. At that point, I had been designing online for a number of years, and that competed directly with the demands of the student athletes. And so when I quit golf, I played golf at the Savannah College of Art and Design. When I quit golf, that was the first time I was ever in a gym setting without either a coach or a team structure. And so this was really like the impetus for Superset. Is I was left there to sort of figure it out on my own. And I turned to what I knew best at the time, which was the internet. And, this was pre-iPhone. So I was going and scraping and printing blog posts that I'd find on T Nation and old internet forum posts that I could cobble together to bring with me to the gym. And through this, I discovered the earliest versions of fitness YouTubers in probably 2008, 2009. So happy to dig into that more, but that was essentially the impetus for everything that we're working on today.
Yeah, it's very cool. And that context is definitely helpful. And I think probably resonates with a lot of people. I know it resonates with myself, although I don't have the kind of technical or design chops that maybe you have and the team has. It was like, as an athlete, trying to piece all this stuff together. And then for me, transitioning into a career as a coach and trainer and gym owner, trying to figure out the best way to deliver these things to people. And this was obviously very early on, but like I was somebody who was also like carrying around a PDF and like making notes by hand and then doing the same thing for my clients eventually, like sending them spreadsheets and, they would have to print things out and all those kind of hurdles that you kind of described. I think for me, figuring out, hey, there's all these different, you know, softwares that kind of solve pieces of this problem and piecing it together myself as a trainer, but kind of always getting to that point where it's like, oh, this is a little wonky. It's a little disjointed. I have to use like 5 things and, why do I have to figure out how that works as the trainer? Um, to what degree was like you stepped back and said, "Hey, I love this kind of as an athlete, as a profession, as an industry, but like navigating where you're going to jump in and ultimately choose Superset, like what went into that?"
So there's a few kind of core memories that I would say are like really impactful for what's led up to this moment in time. There was obviously quitting college sports and being in the gym for the first time without a coach. But beyond that, as a designer and as somebody that was creating essentially web products at the time, websites, different experiments through digital forums and communities, I was just obsessed with like how people were putting stuff out in the world. And with the earliest version of the fitness YouTuber, I was drawn to these people's brands and I would click on their websites, but it was always a terribly designed website. And the product that they were selling was a static PDF. And so this was really where it took off for me. I was just really consumed with this idea that fitness is this inherently visual format where exercises are something you often have to demonstrate to your clients. And so there should be a way to be able to pass through videos and other pieces of metadata or media that eventually essentially help the end client achieve the best results. So there's a few different key things that happened here. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm living in New York City. I'm running my design studio, which is a business I started prior to Superset, and we're working with Google on this online education app called Primer. And the whole premise of this product was how do we take lesson material and turn it into lesson plans that are bite-sized, fun, and don't feel like homework. As a product designer, I came up with this kind of card-based delivery system that you could feed content through, and it would be presented in this bite-sized sequential format. So it was very easy to consume on the end user. You just tap through it. It doesn't feel like homework. You're not going through like these long lesson plans. This was super impactful because Instagram had just launched carousel posts and videos at the time. And so you had all these early fitness YouTubers that were going from long form vlog content to then chopping stuff up into this like bite sized format that you could put into an Instagram post. So it was really cool for me because I'd been thinking about this in my head for such a long time. And then the fitness creator was chopping this stuff up and prototyping it into this Instagram carousel format. So I could reference those Instagram posts with me in the gym, but the same problem still existed, which is like I couldn't actually buy additional workouts from an individual. There was no way for me to bookmark or save my favorite workouts. There was no feedback loop built into this exchange of information. So the fitness creator on the other end had no idea that I was actually consuming or completing this content. So what I did is I kind of started scraping a lot of this chopped up content and putting it into my own prototypes, which were the earliest version of Superset at the time. And fast forward a few more years, I'm still working as a product designer. I'd worked with Airbnb on the experiences side of their business, and then my last hurrah before going full time on Superset was as a product design lead at Spotify. So there was really like this strong thread between all three of these experiences. With Google, you had the instructor and the learner. With Airbnb, you have the host and the guest, and then with Spotify, you had the artist and the listener. And so my role as a designer was like, how do we take these two constituents, tie them together with the most modern, seamless, best in class feedback loop possible, and just bring like a super, super high quality of design and engineering to essentially elevate the user experience that they're engaging in.
This idea and something that's really exciting for me, kind of both in the position where Fit Insider is in the industry, and also my personal interests, is that for so long you had passionate, really engaged, well-meaning, like fitness professionals, health coaches, you name it. And now we've kind of bucket that to some extent into like this fitness creator category, who, for all the work that they were doing, in most cases, like hand in hand with people in the gym, group fitness setting, in person, and then ultimately online, as you're describing with, social media, Instagram, now TikTok, YouTube, you name it. But like not having the tools or the know-how to be able to scale their business to help people to the fullest extent that they wanted to or could. And now, as you're describing your experiences at, Google and Airbnb and Spotify, and having this kind of design and tech background, like over, call it, the last 5 to 8 years, like the movement of people with that skill set into this field that then unlocks this new kind of opportunity for not only health and fitness coaches, but health seekers and people who are trying to establish these habits. Like, it's really exciting and, encouraging, I think, for when you look at the space, like the trajectory that it's on and what's possible and who's working on solving these problems, right? Not only from the newsletter and the content that we try to put out, podcasts, et cetera, but like Fit Jobs and making introductions and trying to, like, how do we get more talented people into this field to solve these problems? Like, this represents a lot of that. And I think it's a good example in terms of what that ended up, whether it was early on or if you want to even jump to like what that looks like now from the coach experience, the actual exercise client experience. What does the kind of product look like? What was the manifestation of saying like, hey, I can bring these learnings from these design roles and also my passion for health and fitness now into kind of solving this problem where I wasn't able to engage with the content, get feedback, keep track of anything, and all those things from like the tech actual problem that we're kind of solving here.
Yeah. So, I mean, to kind of rewind on what you said in the beginning, like for me, I had a very important moment in my career where I had a few kind of successes out of the gates right after college, where I mentioned I was running my own design firm, and we had worked with a number of different VC backed startups, very renowned companies like Tumblr, Warby Parker, a number of other New York and San Francisco based startups. And then I eventually pivoted to working with these bigger tech companies. But as I was kind of pivoting, I was really asking myself, like, what type of business did I want to create next? And I figured out how to create a services business. It wasn't very interesting to me to scale a services business. I was really dead set on creating a product and, more importantly, a software product that could become just a monster company over time. And so it was very much an intentional step back for me where I zoomed out and I was like, what are the two things that I care the most about? And as a founder, like, where do I have the biggest unfair advantage to just kill it in this space, not only for the next couple of years, but something that I can work on for 10, 20, 30 years. So design and fitness were always number one and two for me. And everything that I like care about sort of filters through these two lenses. And so I believe that that is very much a self-actualizing pursuit for me, which is kind of funny because for the customers that we support, which is the independent fitness coach, they all share a similar self-actualizing pursuit, which is running their own business, going online, scaling how they spend and earn back their time with their clients and how many people they can help ultimately in the world. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick because there's very much this desire internally to accomplish this mission, both for us at Superset, but also the types of customers that we're empowering. Another really important piece here is like when we did start to look at what tools to build, we knew that we wanted to take the platform first direction. So we knew that the B2B2C approach was something that we cared about the most. And we believe that that is the biggest opportunity in the space. And so being B2B2C like Shopify or HubSpot or any other platform that has businesses built on top of it, we had to be really careful in picking the right supply side that is going to remain the healthiest and is going to be growing in terms of an MRR type business over time. We couldn't put ourselves behind these kind of flash in the pan type personas that can come online, figure out how to make 10, 20, 50,000 bucks, and then they eventually move on to something else. So the fitness coach for us, the personal trainer is kind of the Gen 1 example of this, but the fitness coach for us is the exact persona that is in this for the right reasons. And they also spend all of their energy on this as their solo business, not one of six revenue streams like the fitness influencer, fitness creator. So that's very important prerequisites for now what types of tools we really focus on. So any type of persona or any type of business owner that's doing something the old fashioned way in person and then is eventually trying to digitize that, often at the very base layer you have the workflow tools. So you have, you can kind of think of it as boring stuff, but for us it's pretty exciting. But it's the basic business tools helping automate payments so that coaches don't have to be texting their clients, asking for Venmo requests, reminding them of a Zelle transfer, even figuring out like things like Stripe and other invoicing software that can cost additional money. Payments is number one. automating check-ins so that they don't have to again bug their clients. Like there's a lot of aspects of what we're building that can be automated and that we do believe benefit from automation or AI. However, the human is still in charge of toying and controlling those things at the end of the day. But we've also heard this from clients. We've heard a lot of clients say like, I hate that like the coach has to bug me about the payments and then I have to be in this awkward position of remembering to do it. And I'd rather just have a robot tell me that I owe my coach this amount of money or have it automatically deducted from my account. So there's the basic workflow software, which is payments, check-ins, adding and managing your clients all in one place. That is very, very important. And we just launched this thing called Superset Sheets, which is basically our answer to this decade old programming problem, which is essentially the centerpiece of the coach and client relationship. Because if you really think about it, when you sign up for a coach, what you're looking for is a transformation of some kind or accountability alongside. And the transfer of training material is what goes into the programming format. So coaches for 10, 15 years now have preferred Excel and Google Sheets because it's just really easy to use. They can make edits on the fly, they can use their keyboard to do shortcuts. It's familiar, they don't have to learn another app. And while all these other coaching platforms went and built these kind of like novel solutions to reinvent how you do client programming, we did a bunch of research with our customers and we're like, why don't we just build a spreadsheet like interface, call it Superset Sheets, that spits out a super modern mobile app on the other side? And so the best of both worlds, where clients love apps and coaches like Sheets, and you kind of get the power of both combined with Superset. So that's the latest thing that we launched. We're super excited about it. We've had like the most inbound demand we've ever experienced in the 4 years we've been doing this. And everybody's just like freaking out about how it's built. My co-founder, Peter, who's my co-founder CTO, he has been just grinding on this stuff nonstop. There's like an insane amount of robust technology underneath the surface, even though it looks really, really simple at the core. And yeah, we're super pumped about just evolving this over time and making it more and more powerful and intentional.
Hey everyone, we'll get you back to the show in just a second. But first, I wanted to tell you about our exclusive PR partner, Jack Taylor. Honestly, this one's a no brainer. We've known the Jack Taylor team for years. They work with some of the most innovative health and wellness companies. We're talking Whoop, Athletic Greens, Hyperice, and many more. Jack Taylor has an extensive industry network, knows how to work with high growth companies, and really invests in building long term relationships. I know this firsthand because they're Fit Insider's PR agency, so I can confidently recommend them, and I do all the time. From startups to more established brands, they go beyond pushing product to help companies truly thrive. To learn more, head to fit.co/Jack Taylor. That's fitt.co/Jack Taylor. Now back to the show. Yeah, it's really interesting digging into Sheets a little bit. I thought the approach around how you characterized it as like this is already the thing that coaches use, and we give clients the thing that they actually want on the other side, and kind of each side doesn't have to worry about the what's happening in the middle, right? Like that's your job at Superset to figure that out. So the simplicity there, again, it seems kind of like obvious, which is like that's the place you want to get to. It's kind of like how you know it worked is when it's like, oh yeah, that was like the thing. Um, when you think about like what went into that, and even kind of whether you think of it as selling or partnering with, or at the end of the day convincing coaches to use this, when again I put my coach hat back on and it's like the number of things I was pitched over the years, like this new software, this workout builder, this CRM system here, is that, or how difficult is that conversation with folks, coaches, as you're trying to get them to try Superset, and what works in that conversation, because again it can be overwhelming from the kind of coach perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, I can talk about product impression. So getting people to try Superset. I mean, there's the growth motion that we figured out, which we can definitely touch on. But yeah, we really just care. Like this kind of comes back to like my design obsession from such a young age. I just like have always valued the less is more mentality, and it's really really hard to make stuff that's just extremely simple but has this like hidden sneaky deep technology aspect to it that just functions how you expect it to work and is reliable and doesn't have a lot of bugs. And so it kind of permeates through every layer of the product making decision in a way, because it's essentially just this huge like iceberg type situation where like what you actually release is like at the very, very top above the water, and then you have this huge thing underneath. And what we did find when talking to coaches is that there's a lot of app fatigue in the space because there's just been so many different failed platforms and experiments over the years. So there's a lot of dead bodies. There's a lot of people that tried different things that, they either raised too much money and ended up building the wrong thing and it was too late and they couldn't back up and kind of reinvent themselves. There was temporary kind of transient visitors in the space that pounced on the gold rush of COVID-19, and they built different types of approaches that kind of violated the core needs of the fitness professional and perpetuated some of the gym membership model stuff or sales floor type mentalities that coaches had such a hard time with for the last few decades. So like with the app fatigue, with there being just all these like failed experiments, it was just really, really important for us to meet coaches where they were already at and try to talk with them on a daily basis about like what other pieces are a core need in their business. We definitely have taken this approach very seriously, which is like we are a targeted subset of these other platforms. We're not trying to boil the ocean and do everything at once. Unlike other platforms that have essentially just added more and more stuff to the all-in-one approach, they've become feature swamps. And what we hear from customers all the time is it's just so cluttered and hard to use and they get overwhelmed. And so it creates this like two-part problem. One is that they don't really know where to start if they're coming online and they have a hard time shifting and building their business in the right way to begin with. And then when they are actually online, they're just inundated with features, and it takes a lot of time to do the most basic things because the user experience in these products is really complicated and not really built in 2023. They're built like 5, 8 years ago in a lot of cases. So there's a bunch of different stuff. It's like a very holistic kind of gestalt style approach where like the sum is equal to the whole of its parts. Hopefully I got that quote right. But yeah, I don't know, that's like how we think about it.
I don't want to gloss over some of the things that you said in terms of like the app fatigue, the kind of gold rush aspect of the space over the last few years, avoiding playing into what is like just replicating the same problems of the in-person models to online. And these are a lot of the things, frankly, that we think about as well when we look at the space and think about how and where opportunities are and who's approaching it with that mindset. And it might seem obvious to you and other folks who have spent a bunch of time thinking about, right, digital tools for health and fitness coaches, and especially this subset that you mentioned, right? Like, hey, let's be hyper focused and aware of what these problems are and how we go about tackling them and intentional in doing that. And it's very obvious listening to you work through that, right? That you did. You talked to the customers, you spent a bunch of time with them, you did the work to figure that out. I guess my question is like, how did you avoid those pitfalls, right? That other folks who looked at this space and said, hey, we can build this platform. We can build a marketplace. We can build an all in one solution. We can build the everything for everyone. Whereas you said, no, pump the brakes. Like, let's go about tackling this in a very intentional way. Like, what was that, if you could even characterize it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that we've avoided certain pitfalls is through time. So, we've been working on this for 4 years full time. We are not a 9 month, 12 month, 15 month kind of fundraising cycle company. We have been very methodical about how much we've raised, how we've deployed that capital, what that means for hiring. And I want to say that a large amount of this stuff is based on experience and intuition working in big tech and in software prior to Superset. Like Peter and myself, my site's design, Peter's engineering. We've both just been like obsessed with building like simple products and platforms for the last 10 years. So we're kind of bringing all of that sensibility into this challenge from the get-go. There's also like this funny thing where a lot of software companies and startups, they talk about this thing of like first mover advantage, and it's very rare that like first mover advantage actually truly wins. And in this case, we're probably like the fifth or sixth or seventh mover in this specific niche, and it's made it possible for us to just look at where all of these different other people on the battlefield are weak or where they're going wrong, and we as a small team can be much more nimble and make really, really tight decisions and navigate that battlefield scenario really, really carefully. And we're also surrounded by a number of like amazing advisors. Our judgment across the board is just kind of concerts into like who we talk to, like what coaches we actually trust that have their heads screwed on straight in the industry. A lot of relationship building within that, bringing people into the fold as we're working on stuff or as we're trying to de-risk stuff. There's all the kind of like lean startup methodologies that we practice, which is like we build MVPs, we build prototypes, we like feature flag stuff, we'll like roll it out to a small portion of the audience. So there's a lot of de-risking that happens both through like our own individual careers, who we hire and how fast we hire, and then what types of customers we bring into the fold. And then from a higher business acumen level, again, going back to the whole B2B to C platform first approach, like what is the best long-term strategy that we believe is going to win in the space? And we're sort of like attacking that from the inside out, it feels, instead of just capitalizing on some short-term hype cycle that is going to scrape or, take a small portion of the top of the market and then we have to figure out the rest.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things other operators, people early in their journey thinking about starting a company or working on a product team within a company, rewind that, listen to it again in terms of the approach. I think it will prove to be very valuable. And as you're saying that, me one recognizing like, yes, that mindset and approach is super important. But then to me, selfishly, the question is like, how are you able to balance what is these two seemingly opposed like mindsets of like we are so intentional, so thoughtful, doing the right things the right way, and oh by the way, at the same time, whether it's to yourself, whether it's to the team, whoever you're selling that vision to, like, but if we do those things, we can. This is how we get to the big picture goal of, if you think of it as like a valuation or size or number of users, like by going slow essentially and intentional, like this is how we go big also at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so obviously software and SaaS has the benefit of these kind of like marginal opportunities where you're building a large number of features or even a small number of features, and those are allowing you to acquire a certain persona that shares the same overlapping set of needs. So currently with like the online fitness coach, there is more to be built on our side to kind of fully support them. And there's ways that they are evolving on their side that we can continue building and supporting alongside. But our big goal is like what persona has the largest set of overlapping needs and pain points. And from there, it's a matter of just figuring out the growth motion to go and find those people and get them to learn about Superset and interact with our brand and our product in a meaningful way. So there's kind of like the pencils down mentality of like we've built this great number of targeted features, and so now we have to just go find people to introduce our brand and get them to interact with us in some novel format. And then there's the other side, which is like being intentional and slow. How do you keep leapfrogging and creating these breakout opportunities over time to move faster than what's happening in the industry? So on the kind of like fast growth side of things, I mean, there's 900,000 personal trainers in the United States today, earning on average around $4,000 a month. So that's $40 billion a year that's collectively trading hands in these kind of like clunky, unideal systems. And right now, I mean, we are just on a mission to like expand as fast as possible to 500 coaches, then 1,000 coaches, then 10,000 coaches, 20,000 coaches, et cetera. And so that 900,000 number is growing every single year. There's more people who are in high school and in college that are wanting to become personal trainers, but the big change that's happening today is that they're shifting online from the get-go. They no longer aspire to work at a Crunch or an Equinox, and they've already built a great brand of their own, or they want to, pursue online coaching right off the bat. So we'd have the benefit of timing here with being post COVID. The light switch has flipped. People know that in order to truly scale, they need to move online or at least standardize or digitize some portion of their operation to where they can kind of work smarter, not harder in that sense. And that's kind of how we think about it in that format.
Yeah, that point around the, I don't want to say the new normal because that gets like looped in with almost like post pandemic and all these ideas, but like just the evolution, right? The kind of natural evolution of technology, social media apps, YouTube, building that following, having the authentic relationship with them, and then figuring out, as we've seen with so many other tools across, and this is what gave us such kind of conviction in this space in general, that it has already happened with other quote unquote influencers or industries, retail and shopping and food, and like that it's already playing out. So it's inevitable that the shift will continue to happen as it relates to coaching and, you know, this being just another version of education, right? Which has already undergone the same type of shift. So thinking about pursuing that goal, thinking about the opportunity as it continues to compound really in your favor. And then now on the back of releasing sheets and figuring out, continuing to get people to engage with that. If we were to look ahead, kind of what's on the roadmap or what's top of mind in terms of either benchmarks or milestones for you, as maybe if we think about the back half of this year and into 2024, like what's really the things that you're focused on and kind of centering the team on as well?
Yeah, I mean, so we as a small team, I mean, we just have two basic functions. There's product and growth. So on the product side, there's a heaping number of evolutions and advancements on Superset Sheets related to how people can create programs, deliver programs, what that looks in the client app. So even the most basic things like circuits, rest timers, being able to do more elaborate type of spreadsheet like functions that can speed up your workflow. We are definitely keen on the idea of an AI assist type concept. We don't want to overload the product with that, but we definitely want to introduce that in your key workflows that can benefit from that. So we believe that, like, as a coach, if you are creating a number of programs already on Superset, we can learn from that and kind of help fill out net new programs that you're creating for customers, or provide program templates that kind of have 90% of what you need right there, and you can kind of go in as an editor and work faster that way. On the growth side, I mean, it's really just about increasing the notoriety of Superset, continuing to offer free value. We have found this very unique growth motion, which we call Freebie Friday. And every single Friday, without fail, we launch a free template, resource, or guide that a coach can use in their business with their clients. And this has been amazing because it's kind of this like repetition based muscle that we've built internally. And every week we create a new one. We've been promoting it via our email list, our social media, and coaches, whether they're a paying coach or just somebody that follows us, they absolutely love these free resources. They're things that coaches are already going to the internet to try to find themselves. So, you know, they might be going to Reddit, they might be asking friends for them, they might be paying a lawyer for certain contracts. And we decided as Superset, we want to put our foot down and take a moment to create these things in house and distribute it to better the overall coaching and client relationship. So we have two coaches on our team that create these freebies every week. Some examples of this are like a client liability waiver, or a Google Sheet workout template, or a nutrition tracker, or a before and after picture template that you use on Canva. So there are these really cool kind of like open source lightweight tools that are meaningful for us to create and promote, but they're really, really quick in terms of time to value for when the coach receives them, and they can customize them and use them in their business. So there's a bunch of different growth experiments that we want to try, and there's a lot of different ways that we want to amplify those different products through UGC content and top of funnel experiments that we've been finding success with. But yeah, I mean, it's really just like a customer count challenge of like, how do we reach more people? How do we continue building the right things and serving you know, the core workflows that these coaches need in their business, and at different stages where we will be, you know, raising more money and building the team alongside that mission. So the big thing on the horizon is raising a bigger round next year to kind of accelerate everything that's been happening this summer, and then that's about to happen this fall, because we definitely just have been like doubling and tripling a lot of key metrics in the last few months. So that's been super exciting. And I think getting closer to this like concrete product market fit is something that we are working more and more toward. And we're definitely having really early solid signs of that. I don't believe that product market fit is just this like one and done type thing either. So it's something that you kind of always have to prove. And we're, you know, realists when it comes to that, and want to make sure that we're always just supporting the customers in the best way possible.
Yeah, the growth aspect super smart, I think, with hey, how do we provide the most value with something tangible and actionable that coaches can turn around and implement in their business? And that being a funnel to the newsletter and social and ultimately the product. So excited to see that scale. You mentioned a couple things there. Obviously, we'll make sure everything's kind of linked up if folks want to check out social, the site, newsletter, and figuring out how to scale that growth motion that you've kind of put in place, run a bunch of new experiments, raising funds, hiring, it sounds like. So a lot going on as you continue to ramp up. Just as we get you out of here, where would you kind of direct people who want to learn more, kind of follow along? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I would go to our Instagram. We're Superset app on Instagram. We're also on all the other popular social media platforms, but Instagram is where you can follow us, see our latest content, our latest free products, updates around what we're building, interact with us. If you send us a DM, we'll respond to you. Just mention this podcast. You can also go to supersetapp.com. That's our homepage and core website. We do have a free tier for the coach tools that we're building, so you're welcome to sign up and poke around and try things out. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think those are the main ones.
Awesome. Like I said, we'll make sure all of that is linked along with the show notes, and really excited to share this conversation. I think there's a lot of takeaways both for, someone who's thinking about building and scaling a product and company intentionally, and also for anyone who's kind of interested in thinking about the evolution of the fitness space as it relates to professionals, trainers, coaches, et cetera. So really excited. Thanks for making some time today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate it.
One more thing before you head out, help us spread the word. Take a minute to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share this episode with a friend. And if you like conversations like this, you'll love the Fit Insider newsletter. We send it every Tuesday. The link is in the description. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week.